Well, hey, Jimmy Reyes here. Today I'm going to be doing some scratchboard art and I'm going to be doing reverse inking. What's reverse inking? Well, let's find out. Okay, so now you can see that all the inking has been done, all the line work is finished, and the blacks have been spotted. And yet, I'm not completely finished with this illustration. Almost there. There are two things that I want to do. One is I want to use a scratch art tool. Second, I want to do reverse inking. What's a scratch art tool? Scratch art tool is a little blade on the end of this handle. This plastic handle is very similar to the handle that you see on my crow quill or the 102 nib. And there's different blades that you place within here. And scratch art is just the way it sounds. You scratch the art onto the board. And generally it's on a mat board. And the mat board has a small black layer on top, and then beneath it is the white mat board. And the scratch tool scratches through the black surface, exposing the white underneath. And you're able to do illustrations that way. And reverse inking is inking white over black, where normally what you see here is you can see that I applied black ink onto white paper. So there are still a few little lines in here that I want to go through and add just to extend lines for the folds and things. Sometimes I want to do what you see here with the bleed going from the black and then it comes out over the white. Well, sometimes if you do little things where you do see the white and then I get white ink and do bleeds going upward, and that's reverse inking because I'll be using white ink. All right, so what am I going to do with this scratch art tool, in case you're wondering here? Well, there's this small area down below, and if you take a close look here, we kind of zoom in here, you can see that I left a lot of white lines and they vary in length. And that was accomplished with my black ink and a nib and taking a French curve and doing fast little lines with that French curve and varying my line width and pressure. Some lines are really thin, some lines I doubled up on, meaning that I made them wider by applying 2 to 3 different lines, but right up to each other, making that line thicker. And I varied my lines and I broke my lines. So when it's completed and you look at it, and you see all the white that is in between, and you can see that. And there's no opaque white in there. It was all actually done with just the nib and the black ink. But yet I want to go through and I want to take my scratchboard tool, and I'm sorry I bumped the camera there because I'm trying to keep the camera low onto the over my drafting table so that you get a better look at the line work, and that's to help with the to aid with the visual learning. And so if you just bear with me, and if you're still with me watching this video, then you've probably watched several of my videos, and hopefully I'll get better at making tutorial videos or just making videos showing me as I'm inking. And I'm learning self-taught, you know, how to film, self-taught how to use Adobe Premiere Pro. So the videos will get better over time. I'm also a self-taught artist, self-taught web designer, and so anything I put my mind to, I have been able to accomplish. And I love learning new things, and I think that's the reason why I'm making tutorial videos, because I want to share what I have learned, my experiences and my approach, and pass it on to the next generation. But let's get back to the scratch board. So as you can see right over here, there are these small little dots within that white. Now that was actually accomplished with ink by spacing the little lines in there. Now I did that to kind of test the look, and I think, you know, okay, it looks pretty good, but it's not the effect or the texture that I am looking for. The effect that I want to do is I actually want to take my scratch board tool, my scratch art tool, over the artboard, and I want to drag it into the lines that are laid down below, because I want to make these little, almost like little chips, like little rocks, and I want to break up the smooth lines that I have down below. And these smooth lines that you see down below, they do several things. By not filling this in solid black, it breaks up the illustration, separates it from the figures that are filled in solid black. And along here it has the grass, it has shrubs in the background, and steam coming out of what looks like a vent down here. And with these lines in one direction going looking like speed lines, it also creates the motion where Batman has Solomon Grundy and it looks like he's about to toss him, and it helps create some movement on a static two-dimensional image. All right, so let's go ahead and take our scratch art tool, and just kind of, I'm going to drag it through here just to kind of, and these lines aren't going to be in an exact order, so I've got to clean off. Careful not, this is actually a pretty sharp blade, so you want to be careful not to. I'm looking for little areas where I think, okay, I can add, and where I think the little scratch board should be. And there's no real pattern behind it. They are a bit random, but yet I just base it on my eye, based on where I think the line should be. You know, where I think, okay, this could help, you know, it could help it right over here. I'm just kind of adding them, because texture is pretty much random when it's on the ground. Little concrete, little gravel and little rocks and stuff. They're not all going to be in the same pattern on the ground. And I don't want to overdo, but if I end up deciding that there's a little more scratch board, well, you can lay down more ink, you can lay down more black and cover it. But I just want to put a few throughout there. And that was just a tiny little, going that extra step. And that's something that can separate you from other inkers, by showing that extra care that you put in, the quality that you put into this illustration. And this illustration right here, normally when I'm actually inking this page, I would have it all done in 6 hours. But because I'm using this illustration for the purpose of the videos, and I've made several videos with this one particular illustration, so it's taking me longer, because editing the video, putting the videos together, studying Adobe Premiere Pro, there's been some time that's been taken away from that time I would have just gone through and just inked it all in one day. But instead I broke it up into several days to go ahead and make these tutorials. And again, like I mentioned before, hopefully over time, my tutorials and my video editing skills will improve. And that's pretty much like, the way I've mentioned, if you're new to inking and you want to start inking, well, over time, and the more hours you dedicate to learning, and the more time that you spend inking, you are going to get better. So the more time that I dedicate to learning Adobe Premiere Pro, the more videos that I make by hands-on, by doing, they're going to get better. All right, so I'm going to move on to reverse inking. You can see the scratch art. I just small little scratches in there, and it didn't take very long. It was fairly quickly. Now I'm going to move on to reverse inking, and what am I using for reverse inking? And if you're wondering what kind of art supplies that I do have a video on my channel, and it is art supplies for inkers, and it's an introduction into 101 that is on there. And eventually I will make a tutorial video on how I use each tool, and I'll provide just the way my experience with them, or what the way that I've learned to use the tools and how I lay down the lines. But for right now, this is the ink that I'm going to be using. It is the Dr. Martens. This one is the Bombay White. I'm out of my favorite ink, but I keep the jar because I want to find this. And I think it's the same thing. I think they just rebranded the white ink because less and less people are using the airbrush and tech pens, and no, I don't think anyone's doing photostats anymore. So I think they just rebrand it so that people don't just think of it as only for tech pens and for photostats or airbrush. In this way, I guess they can sell more. But just shaking that up there. I don't know why, it's a habit. I shake all my inks every time I hold them, I guess because they sit. So I'm going to shake this one up a little bit because the oil inside and the ink separate. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, place this on the side. I'm going to prepare and get it ready for inking in case you are wondering what it looks like. It's a very thin, watery white ink, but it's going to cover the black really well. It's a really good ink. And what I'm going to use to apply that ink is a 102. And this is a Crow Quill Hunt 102 nib. And it is manufactured and made by Speedball. Okay, so looking at my illustration, sitting here and looking at different areas of it and starting to plan ahead, I'm thinking in my head, you know, okay, what in this illustration needs to have white area space between the black? Something like this right here. I just kind of broke a little, like there's little halos, little light, because Batman's arm isn't flat. Batman's arm is many different shapes, and there's different shapes that Dave Finch has put in some shadows when he's rendered, because it's not a flat forearm. So there would be a little light even just peeking in right there, and that helps create the shape. So what I did was I didn't ink it all black because the pencils, you know, were penciled together and it would blend in. I want to keep the shape of Batman's arm, so I left that there. And I want to make sure that there aren't any other areas on here that I would have liked to have left some white. And this little folds right here has bothered me when I was inking this. I like this line work here that Dave had added right here, just different little, showing like just many different folds in his shirt is just kind of bunched together, and this kind of helps create those shapes. And then there's this big solid black, and it kind of bugged me. So I think I want to continue this line work within this black. So I'm going to go ahead and take just a little bit of ink on my nib and just kind of test it out and see how the ink is flowing, and see what else that I think I could do on here. And this Bombay ink is different than my pen white, but I'm guessing it's going to work just the same. It's my first time using it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put in a new nib into this nib holder, because I'm not completely satisfied with and you can see that this nib has been in there for quite a while. You don't really have to change them that often, I find, with the white ink, because I don't usually have to use the white ink every single time. So I'm taking out the box of nibs, taking my nib tip. In case you're wondering, if you haven't seen the supply video, this is the box that the dozen pen nibs come in. And what I do is just stick it in and to the holder, plastic holder, and I kind of rotate as I place it in there, just to make sure that it's not going to be loose. All right, let's get back over here to see what else needs these little lines right here. Oh, okay. Yeah, it needed a new nib. It's much better. All right, let's go back and touch up the previous lines here. Make sure I'm in camera, under the camera view. Okay. So now that I've touched that up, I can do different little things here, little textures, just to do some little tick lines right here to break that up. And those are just in reverse. All right, so I'm going to add some more lines. Go in this direction, kind of like what Dave has done right here. Going that way, I'm going to add some lines going from this spot back because it just bugged me a little bit that this block of this black was just kind of like a block, and I want to break that up. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and keep rotating, take a look through, and I think I can clean this up by doing the same thing here, right over here. I'm not really happy with these lines. And just by adding a few little extras in there. Okay. And these lines that you see me putting down with the white, they're called bleeds. So I just kind of want to continue that same lines and textures right there, just to kind of help it out a little bit. And I think right here we could do the same thing. I don't really want to change up Dave's artwork or anything, but I think this is pretty much within his style. I think this would be something that would still go with his pencil art style. You don't want to over render. You know, sometimes less is more. But I just want to do a few little things. And I'm just kind of experimenting with these little tick lines. If I don't like them at the end when I look at it and I go, no, all right, as a whole it doesn't work, I just put black ink right over it. So that's the cool thing about reverse inking. It's easy to cover it up. Okay, we got some light coming into this fold right here. A lot of times what I do when I'm inking is I really never put a straight flat line down. I generally, most of the time, I am putting down these different little shape lines that zigzag a lot of times or angled, or it's never a flat line because I don't want a flat illustration. So I'm just kind of helping this angle a little bit and just extending that line, bringing that in just a little bit. You're gonna look here at Batman's eye. Let's just make sure Batman's eye has enough space and it's shaped properly. To me, eyes are very important. Although there are no eyeballs, and what I'm referring to is I like to make sure that there are eyeballs within an illustration, because I think The eyes are very important. They really help tell a story. I think they just create mood, I think. But in this one, no one has eyeballs. Okay, I just created a little reverse inking, just kind of, and the reason these lines kind of, the bleeds kind of curve, is to show that, to help a shape go round, because a shirt has a lot of folds. And just kind of going through here and just peeking at different little things that could just use a little bit of, just a little help there. All right, and in case you're wondering how I'm doing these little bleeds, is that I'm kind of laying down a little base, and then I quickly drag and less pressure, and I drag the line, creating that feathered look. And it feathers out the ink. And right over here is a vein, and I want to help that vein have some shape to it. Just to kind of show that, and your lines have to go in that direction to help it angle. Just because it's a vein going that way. Just kind of helping that shape a little bit, showing that, you know, even some of the curve is in shadow. And that's kind of like where I've broken my line into and over. Let's make sure I'm staying in the camera here. One of the neat things when you're making a tutorial video is that you can just kind of work, and you don't have to really think out loud. You can just work and then do a voiceover. But I don't have a microphone, so I'm actually, as I'm working, I am actually talking out loud. It's kind of weird. It's a little funny doing that, but rather than waiting for the opportunity when I can get a microphone, I'd like to not have you wait. And this seems to be working fairly well with the microphone from my camera is actually pretty close to me, so the audio has been pretty good, but I'm just hoping that it stays that way. Okay, so down here in his leg, to break in that shape, there were these white lines that were in there. I didn't completely ink them when I was working with the nib. The nib was, when I was doing the black ink, that nib was giving me some trouble. So in reverse inking, I'm gonna help bring them back in. And I like the end of this to just kind of have a dot right there onto the end of that. And Batman's leg right here with the black ink, if you can see it right here, this part right here, I was thought about inking in some feathering lines going into his foot, but I think I'm going to block that in because there really is no light down there. And these little lines are just, I decided to add these tiny little lines in just to help the shape of his leg, because Batman needs to be muscular and you need to be able to see all his muscles. So let's go through the illustration, take a look. Generally, I want to kind of stick with this style, doing these lines so that I'm not changing up the artwork, but just kind of helping it along. And that's really what an inker, what we do, is that we're here to aid the pencilers. Not only are we here we are here to finish the artwork, and that's the way I approach it, is that I don't ever think of it as just tracing. I think of it as myself as the secondary artist on the page. And I like to help the art along. So let's take a look here and see if there's anything else. Yeah, right here in his hair, there was a little bit more black right there into his hair. And trying to get the page underneath the camera so you can see this, but running out of space on my desk. I actually don't have, if you've seen my video on my art supplies, and I give a little quick tour of my workstation, my studio, and it's a small area, and so I have a little portable little table that is on top of my computer desk. So in his hair right here in the black, I want to help those little strands to just kind of add a few in there. Salman Grundy, I'm imagining this guy is not really into hairstyle, so his hair is going to be a bit, strands are just going to be kind of going everywhere. They're not going to be, he's not going to have this gelled up hair. Alright, so inside his mouth, maybe there could be, you know, the illustration's gonna be reduced, but, ooh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit the camera there, make you dizzy. But even though the illustration's gonna be reduced, let's do a kind of spit coming out of his mouth there, just kind of, you know. And that's pretty much it. I really don't see much of anything else where I would want to go back in, and I don't want to over render, and but I do want to make sure that I'm staying with shapes here. And let's see this right here, maybe bringing in a little bit of that into that shirt. Maybe the light would still kind of catch that by doing these lines that aren't flat, just to get the eye to kind of see some of the shape of the fabric, and let the viewer's eye do the rest. And so just kind of just extended that line just a little bit. So reverse inking is just that. It is taking your white ink over black, and it can be done several different ways. Sometimes, you know, while I'm inking, it's always good to plan ahead and try to, if you can, leave the white space there when you are inking with the black, and so that you don't have to go back and do so much work, any extra work. But there are situations like this where when I was inking, you know, I said, hey, you know, I think I would like to go back in there and do some reverse inking. So I'm taking a look on the art page and looking at the illustration, pick my head up off my desk without leaning over so that I can gain a new perspective and see the artwork as a whole. And just taking a look through to see if there's anything else that I could add. I mean, you could add, you know, little nicks and scratches on the boot, you know, a little line, but I don't think that's really Dave's style. I think he has a lot of solid black in there, and I want to stay with that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a closer look here. You know, take a look at the line that I did in reverse inking right there, those little texture things. And I'm not sure I'm satisfied with that. So what I'm going to do is I can actually go back in with my black brush, black those out, because I think, you know, the lines going out this way, they match what's done up here. And I don't think that matches, so I think I'm going to go ahead and remove remove that. And when I'm working with, and I didn't mention before, anytime you're working with ink, what you want to do is you want to have some water nearby. I have my water in a baby food jar because they're wide enough that I can dip any brush in there, nibs, but they are the wide enough base that I don't knock them over. I don't have to worry about them spilling. They're pretty good. They design very well, and so I don't have to worry about tipping them. So what I'm doing here is, off camera, I am getting my black ink and I'm putting away the white ink. And if you haven't seen any of the other videos, the black ink that I use is Koh-i-Noor Universal, and I place it in this little jar. It's the same jar that I have. And in case you're wondering where I get these jars, they are from the Winsor & Newton Indie Ink. And you can find those at your art stores. They're pretty widely, easily, you know, find. They're widely, I think, you know, available at, you know, your different art store retailer and online. The brush that I'm going to use, in case you are watching one of my videos for the first time, I use a Winsor & Newton Series 7 brush, size 2, round. And that brush just does everything for me. That's really my main brush when I ink with brush. Although I favor the nib, I don't only ink with the nib. I can actually ink this entire page with a brush, but it's not the look that I was going for. So I decided to go with the nib. And to be completely honest, I think the nib, I'm slightly more confident with the nib than I am with the brush. I'm not, I mean, I'm not unable to ink with a brush. I mean, I can, but I think I feel more comfortable, and I think I just move a little faster when I'm working with the nib. So you see there, I covered that up because in my eye, looking at it, I wasn't happy with those tick lines that I did in reverse. It was really just like an idea that I thought, you know, let's try this out. Let's see if it works, because I knew that I could just cover it up with the black ink if I was unsatisfied with it. And it worked out because it's a good example, you know, for this video. And let's see, I'm trying to make sure that my hand doesn't really cover up the view here of what I'm doing. When you're doing these fine little steady lines, you really don't have to be, you know, you don't really need to be, you need a steady hand, you do, but you don't have to be too scared of those little lines. What helps is breathing out, you know, just let that air out, and that steadies your hand. All right, so let's take a look at the illustration here. It is a Batman from Batman issue 2. I believe it's maybe from their Rebirth line. And the illustration was done by comic book superstar, veteran artist, David Finch. He's an incredibly talented, very talented artist. And I really enjoy his work. He reminds me of my favorite artist, Rudy Nebra. Right. Let's take a look here and see. Get a closer look. And then I will show you a shot from further away. And if you like to see the finished complete illustration and you want to see how it came out, it's going to be on my DeviantArt page. My DeviantArt page is right here on the screen. It is my name, jimmyreyes.deviantart.com. And on there, I'm going to place a high-res version of this. So if you are a colorist online, or if you're also a colorist and not just interested in inking, or if you know someone who's interested in coloring, they'll have this line work available and they can download directly from my DeviantArt page. If you like to keep up with any updates along with the work that I do or videos, you can also follow me on Twitter. My name is at Jimmy Reyes Art, and that's my Twitter handle. In case you're wondering about the YouTube channel, mine is Jimmy the Art God. You know, it's when I was choosing a name back then, so many people have my name. I run into people all the time, especially here in Texas. Just my name is so common that when I was registering, I kept typing in my name, and I needed something different, finally just said, you know, tired of typing in different variations of my name, and they're all taken. It's just Jimmy the Art God, you know, and it went through. So now I'm stuck with it. You know, it's you know, I don't know, it's not hubris or something, but you know, not that I think I'm an art god, but I try. You know, I enjoy inking. I hope that you've enjoyed these videos, and feel free to leave comments. Please rate the videos. Feel free to share the videos, and keep an eye on the channel. I will try to update at least once a week with the video, but at the same time, it takes time editing videos. I'm getting better at it as I'm learning, and but I'm also inking pages for projects. So you know, if you don't see an update within a week, but just keep your eye on there. It will be updated as often as I can. And again, thank you so much for your time. Keep inking away. Don't stop. Don't give up. Just keep inking. That's how you're going to get better, and you will. You'll get so much better, and maybe you'll start teaching me a few things. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.